Hello class, my name is Chelsea Heil, and the title of my report is Does Big Pharma Value Profits Over People? An examination of the effects and implications of the pharmaceutical industry on consumer welfare. The purpose of my report is to examine the effects and implications of the pharmaceutical industry and its practices on consumer welfare. I will cover issues with regulation of the pharmaceutical industry, widespread unethical behavior in the industry, issues with pharmaceutical marketing, harmful effects on consumers, and recommendations. American consumers interact with the pharmaceutical industry every day, mainly by taking prescription medications and seeing advertisements for drugs. In June of this year, the Mayo Clinic found that nearly 70% of Americans are on at least one prescription drug and more than half take two. This statistic alone highlights the need to examine the effects of the industry on consumer welfare. The Mayo Clinic also reported that expenditures on prescription drugs reached $250 billion in 2009 and accounted for 12% of total personal health care expenditures. These numbers aren't surprising when you consider the amount of money that pharmaceutical companies spend to research, develop, and promote their products. Peter Cadle found that the products each cost an average of $1.2 billion to develop, and the industry spends about $29 billion annually on product promotion. With numbers as large as these, it's no wonder that the industry has earned the nickname Big Pharma. A lot of controversy surrounds the regulation of the pharmaceutical industry, especially the close ties between the US FDA and the industry, and particularly the Prescription Drug User Fee Act of 1992. A lot of concerns have been raised regarding the rate at which new drugs are approved, and many have been questioning the safety of drugs that are pushed through the FDA's evaluation and approval process. Under the Prescription Drug User Fee Act of 1992, all applicants seeking drug approvals help fund drug evaluation. The payments are designed to accelerate review of drug trial results by providing funding for additional staff. This addresses an industry complaint that the drug review process, which averaged 29 months, moved too slowly. Since the implementation of the Act, the time frame has been cut almost in half to an average of 1.1 years. Critics of the Prescription Drug User Fee Act of 1992 claim that the Act has brought the FDA too close to the industry that it regulates for public comfort or safety, and has raised questions about outside pressure to approve new drugs and the agency's independence to operate in the public interest. While the effects of the Prescription Drug User Fee Act of 1992 on consumer welfare can be debated, the unethical behavior prevalent in the industry is concrete evidence of Big Pharma's negative impact on consumers. One of the world's largest drug companies, Bristol Myers Squibb, is a prime example of just how much it pays to play unethically in the pharmaceutical industry. In March of 2003, the company settled federal charges for engaging in activities that blocked competition for 3 of its drugs for almost 10 years. 2 of these drugs were anti-cancer medications, and 1 was an anti-anxiety medication. The anti-competitive behavior included paying more than $70 million to a rival drug company to keep its generic version of one of the medications off the market. These actions have been extremely damaging to consumers. The FTC stated that cancer patients and other consumers who were being denied access to lower-cost alternatives were forced to overpay by hundreds of millions of dollars for important and often life-saving medications. This raises questions about whether Bristol Myers cares more about profits than the health and welfare of its customers. Drug manufacturers have learned that it pays to play unethically because the profit boosts that arise from these illegal activities severely outweigh the damages the companies pay to settle federal charges. In addition to illegal activities such as competition blocking, kickback offerings, and price fixing, drug manufacturers have also settled many cases regarding product promotion. Purdue Frederick pled guilty of fraudulently misbranding OxyContin. This was extremely damaging and harmful to consumer welfare. When OxyContin came onto the market in 1995, sales of the drug boomed. Doctors were less hesitant to prescribe this particular painkiller because Purdue claimed that the gradual time-release characteristic of the drug was a built-in safeguard against abuse and addiction. However, in 2007 it was discovered that Purdue's top executives buried or distorted test results that showed that the drug actually had addictive properties. To make matters worse, some have claimed that the FDA also played a hand in actually advertising a method to abuse the drug by approving an OxyContin label warning against crushing tablets, which would deliver the entire dose of oxycodone at once. Signal theory, which explains ways in which communications convey meaning beyond the explicit or obvious interpretation, can be applied to this FDA mishap. The intended signal of the message on the warning label was to warn consumers, yet consumers who were prone to drug abuse or addiction comprehended an unintended signal, that it's possible to abuse OxyContin by crushing the pills. Prescription drug abuse and painkiller addiction are serious issues in the United States that have serious and even deadly consequences for consumers who suffer from drug addiction. Once again, this case provides evidence that the FDA is too closely tied to the pharmaceutical industry, and that neither the drug manufacturers nor the FDA have much concern for consumer welfare and public safety. One highly debated aspect of the pharmaceutical industry is the use of direct-to-consumer or DTC marketing and advertising. Many have questioned if DTC advertising is ethically and socially responsible. Supporters claim that it improves the quality of healthcare because it helps patients ask informed questions about specific medications. However, several issues arise when a consumer sees an advertisement for a drug that they believe can help their health. First, the consumer may not receive important information about all of the risks and side effects of the medication. Second, depending on how the drug is marketed, a consumer may ask a physician for a drug that is not approved or intended to treat their condition, and consumers frequently receive prescriptions of this nature. DTC advertising can also increase the demand for brand name drugs. Brand name drugs play an interesting role in the pharmaceutical industry. As we learned in this course, like price, brand names can be used as signals of quality, and studies have found that brand names are even stronger signals of quality than its price. Therefore, even though brand name drugs cost more than generics, consumers may still demand brand names over generics due to quality perceptions. It's also interesting to consider that many consumers take generic medications, yet they still refer to them by their brand name counterparts. For example, it's more likely that you'll hear somebody ask for Tylenol than for acetaminophen. Additionally, there's little to no evidence that a more expensive brand name product, the ones that are typically advertised, are sufficiently superior to generic medications. While marketing misbehavior and questionable methods such as DTC advertising do have a direct impact on consumer welfare, the impact is typically in the realm of financial effects such as higher drug prices. The drugs themselves have a much more significant impact on consumer welfare. All you need to do is turn on a television to see that concern over the effectiveness and safety of prescription drugs has been increasing. Law firms are notorious for commercials regarding drugs, and one of the most common of these commercials targets consumers who have been injured by the birth control pills Yaz and Yasmin, both of which are manufactured by big pharma giant Bayer. 1,100 lawsuits were filed over Bayer's popular birth control pill Yaz. The lawsuits claimed that Yaz had a higher risk of blood clots than other contraceptives due to an ingredient that was found only in Yaz and Yasmin. Yaz caused at least 50 deaths, including the death of an 18-year-old girl who suffered a massive stroke caused by a blood clot after taking Yaz for only 1 month. Additionally, it's important to consider that some of these deaths may have been prevented if the FDA had appropriately reported the November 2009 recall of Yaz and made the information readily available to the public. Instead of publishing the recall in the Recalls, Market Withdrawals, and Safety Alerts section of the FDA's website, the recall was instead buried in an enforcement report section where most people would not normally look for recall information. Despite paying over $1 billion to settle lawsuits, Bayer stated that it stands by its products. How is it possible that a company can stand by products that were not only recalled by the FDA, but that also resulted in at least 50 deaths and numerous injuries to consumers? This also provides additional evidence that pharmaceutical companies put consumer welfare on the back burner while they continue to pursue higher profits. Unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry exists within a dangerously tangled web spun by drug companies and the FDA, much to the expense of the 70% of American consumers who take prescription medications. It is obvious that drug companies need to learn to act in socially responsible and ethical ways, yet the industry is so corrupt that change may not be possible in the near future. These drug companies should take 2 of the prescriptions for improved marketing ethics found in our textbook under serious consideration for application. The first is that marketers must put people first and consider the effects of their actions on all stakeholders. This is important because evidence shows that companies all too often focus on profits over people. Second, marketers must be held responsible for the means they use to achieve their desired ends. Focusing on profit motivations is not enough. This is critical because companies can pay settlements instead of being criminally punished for unethical and illegal behavior. In light of Bristol-Myers Squibb's anti-competitive behavior toward generic drugs, pharmaceutical companies should also focus on branding and building brand loyalty. Companies should build brand loyalty before their patents expire in order to protect their brands from generic competition. Strong brand loyalty can also aid companies that commit marketing misbehaviors. Because competitive intensity is high and switching costs are low in the pharmaceutical industry, drug companies are already vulnerable to customers switching to another drug even if they are satisfied, and the companies are highly vulnerable to switching when the customers are dissatisfied. Much of the marketing misbehavior and illegal acts committed by drug companies typically revolve around misleading consumers, unfair treatment of consumers, and unfair prices, all of which can result in consumer dissatisfaction. Equity judgments, and in particular perceptions of unfair treatment, are particularly prone to lead customers to switch. However, building strong brand loyalty can increase relational switching costs, which are particularly important because they are the most likely cost to prevent switching behavior. Brand switching is extremely damaging and costly to drug manufacturers. Lost sales driven by brand switching and negative word of mouth that result from perceived product failure are estimated at $15 to $20 billion annually. However, based on the evidence that pharmaceutical companies continue to value profits over people, these companies may have no actual interest in building true customer loyalty or recovering lost sales. It is clear that the pharmaceutical industry and its practices have serious implications for consumer welfare. But ultimately, the future of consumer welfare with regard to pharmaceuticals lies on a double-edged sword, with the complications of government regulation on one side and Big Pharma's apparent resistance to ethical and socially responsible behavior on the other. Thank you.